Hello. So today we're going to look at what I call cut, paste, and caught. This is Joe Smith, a student at East Tennessee State University, and we're going to look at the issue of. And the article I chose to look at was an article called Turnitin Systems, a Deterrent to Plagiarism in College Classrooms. It's written by Professors Heckler, Rice, and Bryan, and it appeared in the Journal of Research and Technology in Education in 2013. Overall, it was a very excellent article. I was very pleased with the findings and the information. It's a very relevant study in the world of higher education. So the article deals a lot with plagiarism. Let's kind of start and look at what plagiarism is. And the best place to go for a definition of plagiarism is the Oxford English Dictionary, which defines plagiarism as the practice of taking someone else's work, their idea, etc., and passing it off as one's own work. And how big of a problem is plagiarism? Well, obviously, it is a huge problem. I found studies that went back into the 60s, but there's been some relevant, more recent studies which define plagiarism as having an increased prevalence of academic dishonesty, particularly plagiarism. It's a serious problem. But what about digital plagiarism? We know that computers have made our life easier. It's easier to get articles, information so much more easier. So obviously, does that mean that it's easier to commit plagiarism digitally? Answer, according to researchers, is yes. In fact, there are researchers who said that digital plagiarism has surpassed conventional forms of plagiarism. I found that very interesting. The purpose of this study, again, which appeared in the journal, was two things. Was determine if awareness of a plagiarism detection tool being used in the classroom, did it deter students from committing plagiarism? Also, the researchers wanted to know if issues such as gender, major, or class standing could predict the behavior of plagiarism. The authors may note that there are a lot of challenges into preventing plagiarism. Two they identified was, number one, that students have very varied opinions of what constitutes plagiarism. There was a study that showed students who committed plagiarism but felt they had done nothing wrong. But the researchers also found that there were faculty who were very loose in their commitment to enforcing rules. Some faculty did enforce the rules, some did not. So obviously these present bigger challenges to solving the problems of plagiarism. Now, there are several types of online detection tools. There's Eve, Copycatch, Turnitin, and WordCheck. For the purpose of this study, the researchers looked specifically at Turnitin, which, if you've noticed in our D2L site, Turnitin is one of our. What do we know about Turnitin? Well, it's globally recognized as an effective system. It's been around since 1997. Some define it as the most advanced in finding semi-automatic forms of plagiarism. And how it works is when someone submits a paper into Turnitin, the wording is compared to approximately over 130 million other papers turned in to Turnitin, as well as over 13 billion pages on websites. That includes academic publications, news sites, online encyclopedias, and other sources. And what Turnitin does is they will assign what they call a similarity or an overlap score. It can be low, 0 to 24%, but as high as 75 to 100%. The higher the overlap score, the greatest degree of plagiarism. So that's how it works. The higher the score you get, the more likely there was some type of plagiarism committed. So remember, the goal of this study was not to sit back and determine how effective Turnitin was in detecting plagiarism, but rather how effective it was in deterring plagiarism among students who knew that it was being used. So this was not, how well does it work, but more of, does the presence of it make a difference in preventing plagiarism? So here's how the study worked. They used an Intro to Sociology course at a university in the South. Obviously, Intro to Sociology is a course that satisfies general education requirements, and it has a diversity of students from a lot of majors and different classes. The study took place over the course of 1 year. In the fall of 2010, there were 997 students in the class, and then in spring 2011, there were 537 students. So for the sample size, they had 360 students from the fall and 304 from the spring. The sample sizes had similar populations of students with different majors. And the process was like this. All of the students in the fall and spring courses received the same syllabi which outlined issues of academic integrity. But neither in the fall nor the spring semester did the professors make any reference to academic integrity. It was just assumed the students would read it. Now, here's where the change happened. The students in the fall group were told to turn their assignments in, but they were not told that their assignments would be placed in Turnitin to monitor for plagiarism. I'm going to call that group the naive group. The students in the spring semester were told, submit your assignments through Turnitin. That's a detection tool for plagiarism. Submit your assignments through that. I call this the informed group because they knew their work was going to undergo a detection tool. So what Turnitin does, it looks at the following types of plagiarism. Plagiarism from the internet, plagiarism from a publication, plagiarism they call student to student, where one student uses the work of somebody else. And as you'll see, that was a very common type used. And there was an overall overlap score. So what did they find out? Well, in the naive or uninformed group, they had a high incidence of plagiarism. It was the range went up to 76% with a mean of 16.55%. The largest type of plagiarism occurred with the student overlap. Again, it had a 16.33% incident rate overall mean. The internet overlap score was 5.43, and then the lowest was publication overlap score with a mean of 0.33%. So as we see here, plagiarism did occur, but it was the highest among student-to-student papers. So let's see what happened with the informed group. The number dropped. The overall overlap score went way down. The mean was 9.76%. Again, student-to-student overlap was the highest incident for plagiarism, but it was only at 9.34%. Internet and publication again followed with lower scores. So what that means is we found out that students who knew that the plagiarism detection tool was being used, they were less likely to commit a type of plagiarism. But what about those other factors? Factors like gender, major, or class standing. Did that influence plagiarism? Well, let's see. Gender. This was a very interesting finding. In the naive group, no, there was no difference between gender. But in the informed group, yes. Males had a higher rate of plagiarism in the student-to-student overlap, the internet overlap, and the overall overlap score. So yes, among the informed group, gender did play a difference. In class standing, there was no difference among either group. But what about majors? Interesting here, in the naive group, there was some significance among students in social work versus the other groups, just in the category of publication overlap. It wasn't very high. Other than that, there were no other significant findings. And in the informed group, majors really did not have much of a difference. What do we take home from this study? We know that students who are aware the monitoring system is in place is less likely to commit plagiarism. And we also know, in terms of gender, males had a higher rate of plagiarism, but that was among the group who knew the monitoring tool was in place. And again, I found that really interesting. But overall, this was a really fascinating study. I think we realized that with these detection tools, while they're very effective in determining if plagiarism occurred, they also have a role in determining can they actually prevent students from plagiarism when they know it's going to be used. Again, this is a great study. I really